My teacher was my mother's secret lover. The first time I met him, I never imagined how deeply he would tangle himself into the fabric of my life. His name was Mr. Carter, young for a teacher, barely in his early 30s, with a quiet confidence that made students lean in when he spoke. He wasn't like the older professors who droned on and lost us in monotone. No, he had a way of making every lesson feel alive, almost like he was telling us a story instead of teaching history. I was 17 then, sitting in the third row of my high school classroom, more interested in doodling in my notebook than memorizing the Battle of Hastings. My life was ordinary, too ordinary. I lived alone with my mother after my father left years ago. She was strong, beautiful in her own way, and carried herself with a grace that always made people stare when we walked into restaurants or shops. But when Mr. Carter entered my life, things began to shift in ways I couldn't explain at first. He wasn't just my teacher. He was someone who noticed the way I hesitated before answering questions, noticed how I stayed after class, waiting for the halls to empty before walking home, noticed how my smile never quite reached my eyes. "You're sharper than you let on," he once told me, leaning against his desk as I packed my bag. His tone was casual, but his gaze was piercing. I had blushed and shrugged it off. Maybe I just don't like showing off. "Or maybe you don't know how brilliant you really are," he said, and then dismissed me with a smile that lingered in my mind the entire walk home. At home, my mother noticed my distracted mood. She was quick to catch any change in me, but instead of teasing, she only smiled knowingly. "New teacher, huh?" she asked one evening as she chopped vegetables in the kitchen. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound bored. "History." "History?" Her voice carried a light laugh. "Well, at least it's not math. You always hated math." I rolled my eyes, but inside something flickered. She was right. But why did I feel like she was amused by something more than just my lack of interest in equations? Weeks passed, and I found myself lingering on Mr. Carter's words. He had a gift for unlocking doors in my mind, about the past, about choices, about consequences. The way he connected ancient wars to the struggles we face today made me feel like everything in life had a deeper meaning. But something else grew alongside my admiration. Attention, not the romantic kind, not yet, but a curiosity, a pull, and then one evening, everything shifted. It was a Friday night, and I came home earlier than expected. Mom usually worked late at the gallery, curating exhibitions and mingling with clients. But that night, her car was already in the driveway. I pushed the door open, calling out, "Mom, you home?" The living room was quiet, the lights dim. I heard voices coming from the kitchen, low, hushed, intimate. I stepped closer, my heart picking up speed, and froze. Because the voice I heard, unmistakable and warm, was his Mr. Carter. I didn't enter right away. My feet rooted to the floor as my brain scrambled to make sense of it. What is he doing here? My mother's laugh followed, soft and familiar, but threaded with something I'd never heard before. A kind of vulnerability. I peeked around the corner and saw them standing close. Too close. My mother leaned against the counter, her arms crossed loosely, her lips curved in a smile I had only ever seen in old photographs with my father. And Mr. Carter. He wasn't my teacher in that moment. He was just a man looking at my mother like she was the center of his universe. I pulled back before they saw me, my chest tight, my thoughts spiraling. It didn't make sense. How could he, the man who spent hours teaching me about history, be standing in my kitchen, sharing secret smiles with my mother? That night, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail. The way she had laughed, the warmth in his voice, the intimacy in their posture, and slowly, the truth began to creep into my mind. Unwelcome, impossible, yet undeniable. My teacher was my mother's secret lover. That was the beginning of everything. The lies, the secrecy, the heartbreak that would follow. At 17, I thought life was about grades and friends and figuring out who I wanted to be. I had no idea that my world was about to fracture into pieces I would never fully put back together again. Because once a secret like that is uncovered, nothing is ever the same. The weekend after I caught them together was the longest of my life. Every time I looked at my mother, I felt like there was a secret written across her face, something I wasn't supposed to see but couldn't unsee either. She hummed while making breakfast, moving with a lightness I hadn't noticed in years. It wasn't the tired, forced energy she carried after long days at the gallery. It was joy, real joy, and it made me uneasy. "Why are you staring at me like that?" she asked one morning, sliding a plate of scrambled eggs in front of me. I blinked, realizing I'd been studying her smile. No reason. She tilted her head, giving me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she let it go. At school, Mr. Carter acted completely normal, as if nothing had happened. He handed out assignments, lectured about the Renaissance, joked lightly with the class. If anything, he seemed calmer, more relaxed than usual, but I couldn't stop seeing him in my kitchen. I couldn't erase the way he had looked at her. During class, his eyes brushed past me, lingering just long enough to make my stomach twist. Did he know I had seen them? Or was I just imagining it? That Friday night replayed in my head on a loop, Mom laughing, his hand brushing hers, the closeness between them. It wasn't just casual. It wasn't a friendly visit. It was something else. And once I saw it, I started noticing more. The way my mom's phone buzzed late at night, and how she smiled faintly before setting it face down on the table. The way she suddenly took more time getting dressed before work, wearing soft perfumes she hadn't touched in years. The way she seemed lighter, younger, like she was carrying a secret happiness around in her pocket. One night, curiosity burned too hot to ignore. I was sitting at the dining table, pretending to do homework, when I asked casually, "So, anyone new in your life?" Her knife paused over the cutting board. Just for a second, but I noticed. She glanced at me, her expression carefully neutral. "What do you mean? You just seem different, happier." Her lips curved into a soft smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I can't be happy without it meaning something?" I tried to laugh. Just asking, but inside my chest tightened. She wasn't denying it. She wasn't confirming it either. She was protecting something. The following week, it got worse. I stayed late at school for a project, and when I finally walked out into the parking lot, I froze. My mom's car was there, parked near the edge, half hidden under the glow of a streetlight. And leaning against it was Mr. Carter. He wasn't in his usual suit and tie. He was wearing jeans and a dark jacket, his hair messier than usual. He looked less like a teacher and more like a man waiting for someone he loved. I ducked behind a row of bushes before they could see me. My heart thundered in my ears. Mom appeared minutes later, walking toward him with a smile that made my stomach sink. She didn't look like a mother picking up her daughter's teacher. She looked like a woman meeting a lover. They didn't kiss, not there, not where someone could see. But the way his hand brushed her arm, the way her body leaned toward his, it said enough. That night, I lay in bed wrestling with a storm of emotions: betrayal, anger, confusion, curiosity. How long had this been going on? Did Dad know before he left? Did she really think she could hide it from me forever? The worst part wasn't even the secret. It was the fact that he was involved. My teacher, the man I was supposed to respect, trust, and learn from. He wasn't supposed to be in my house. He wasn't supposed to look at my mother like that. And yet, he was. At school, I couldn't focus. Every word he spoke felt like it carried double meaning, as though he was teaching one lesson to the class and whispering another one only I could hear. One afternoon, as the others filed out, he called my name. "Stay for a moment, please." My heart thudded painfully as I walked to his desk. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. His gaze was calm, steady, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something unspoken. "You seem distracted lately," he said. I forced a shrug. "Just school stuff." "School stuff?" His lips quirked into a faint smile. "Or something else?" The silence stretched. For a moment I thought he knew, that he was about to say it outright. But then he simply nodded and dismissed me, leaving me more shaken than before. At home, I started keeping my distance from my mom. I answered her questions with short replies, retreated to my room after dinner, avoided her gaze whenever possible. She noticed, of course. One night she knocked on my door. "Sweetheart, can we talk?" I hesitated, then mumbled, "I'm tired." But she came in anyway, sitting on the edge of my bed. She brushed my hair back from my face like she used to when I was little. "You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" I almost told her. The words almost spilled out. "I know about you and Mr. Carter." But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear of hearing the truth. Maybe it was the part of me that still didn't want to shatter the illusion of my family, fragile as it was. So I just whispered, "Yeah, everything's fine." Her eyes lingered on me, doubtful, but she didn't push. She kissed my forehead softly and left. And I lay there in the dark, suffocating under the weight of what I knew and what I couldn't say. Days turned into weeks, and the secret gnawed at me like a hidden wound. I caught glimpses of him and my mother together in small, stolen moments. His car parked near ours at the grocery store, his voice murmuring through the phone when she thought I wasn't listening. The way her smile bloomed every time she read a message, it was undeniable. My mother was in love, and the man she loved was my teacher. The night everything snapped into focus was a Tuesday, the kind that starts ordinary and ends like a glass dropped on tile. It had rained all afternoon, the kind of rain that made the streets shine like polished mirrors and turned every passing car into a smear of light. I got home early because debate practice was canceled. "Leaky roof in the auditorium," Mr. Patel said with a sigh, as if the building itself were tired of holding secrets. Mom wasn't home. Her note sat on the kitchen island in her tidy handwriting, late at the gallery. "Leftover soup in the fridge. Love you." A lipstick kiss at the bottom, the way she signed notes when I was little. I stared at that kiss mark for a long time. I didn't feel like heating soup, or doing homework, or being the kind of daughter who pretended not to notice her life tilting. I went to my room. I meant to scroll, to numb myself with 30-second stories about other people's lives, but my phone died the moment I opened the app. "Perfect," I muttered. My charger was in the living room, dangling from the sofa where I always left it. As I bent to grab it, my elbow hit the coffee table and sent my mom's tote bag thudding to the carpet. The contents spilled like a confession. A slim black notebook, a tube of lipstick, a receipt from a wine shop, and a folded envelope with my school's crest stamped in a sober gold. I froze. The envelope wasn't sealed. My name wasn't on it. Curiosity knocked once and then kicked down the door. I picked it up, hands shaking. Faculty and community partner volunteer form. The header ran across the top like a banner at a parade. Beneath it, in neat block letters, Adrian Carter, History Department. My heartbeat ricocheted in my ribs. I scanned the lines. Parent-teacher outreach initiative, mentoring, family engagement nights. There at the bottom, a handwritten note. Mara, thank you for agreeing to meet this week. It matters to me. A for Adrian. My stomach dropped. My mother's name is Mara. He had written to her, not as Mr. Carter, not as faculty to parent, but as Adrian. And she'd tucked it, casual and unhidden, into the bag she carried everywhere like it was just another grocery receipt. I put everything back as I'd found it, almost reverently, afraid to breathe wrong in case the truth blew away, and I'd have nothing but the sick feeling it left behind. But the truth didn't blow away. It settled in, heavy and sure. I should have waited. I should have done the smart thing. Asked her about it without accusation, demanded the story without bleeding first. Instead, I did what I always did when my brain got too loud. I went for a walk. The rain had thinned into mist, the streetlights casting halos that followed me down the block. I walked past our neighbors' houses, the one with the toy-strewn yard, the one where the curtains were always closed. I didn't know where I was going until I was there. The city library. Open until 9 on weekdays. Warm light spilling across the wet steps like a welcome mat. I stepped inside, shook the damp from my sleeves, and wandered to the back where they kept the local history books. The library smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner, a scent that made me think of Mr. Carter's classroom. I wondered if that was part of why I'd come. Some subconscious need to put myself inside places that felt like him, to understand how he'd gotten inside my life. "Can I help you find something?" the librarian asked. She was small, with gray hair pinned into a neat bun, and the kind of smile that made you feel like you'd done something right by just showing up. Do you have the school yearbooks?" I said, the idea forming as I spoke. "From like the last 15 years? She nodded. And a minute later she was leading me to a metal shelf with heavy, cloth-bound volumes. I ran my fingers along the spines, each stamped with a year in gold. 10 years back, 12, 15. I tugged one free at random and flipped through pages of grinning faces and awkward poses. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Proof that my mother and Mr. Carter had known each other longer than I realized? Evidence that this wasn't new? Something to make me angrier or softer. I couldn't tell which. On the third book, I found him. Younger, his hair a little longer, his smile wider. Adrian Carter, History. No ring in the picture. No hint of the man who would stand in my kitchen and laugh with my mother, like the world had narrowed to 2 people and a countertop. I closed the yearbook and slid it back, suddenly aware that this search wasn't going to give me anything I didn't already have. Fact without context. So I did the unthinkable. I texted him. "I need to talk to you, tonight." My thumb hovered over send. My chest throbbed like a bruise. Then I tapped the screen, and the message went out into the quiet. He responded fast. "Are you safe?" The question cut through me. "Yes." I stared at the blinking cursor, then added, "Are you with my mother?" A pause, long enough for my breath to fray. "No. Where are you?" "Library 10 minutes. I could have said no. I could have run home, crawled into bed, and pretended the last few weeks were a fever I could sweat out. But 10 minutes later, the library's back door opened, and there he was, rain on his shoulders, a carefulness in his posture like he had rehearsed walking in without looking guilty. "Hi," he said softly, as if we were meeting at school, as if this were normal. "Hi," I echoed, my voice thin. He didn't reach for me. He didn't touch me at all. He stood an arm's length away and waited. "You're seeing her," I said. No preamble, no grace. His jaw tightened. He looked down at the scuffed floor, then back at me, eyes steady. Yes, the word hit like a hammer. Not because I hadn't expected it, but because I had. Because confirmation is a different kind of wound than suspicion. It splits in a clean line that's harder to pretend around. "How long?" I asked. "Since spring," he said. He stopped. "I should tell you everything, but it's not just my story. I won't betray her privacy, not more than this. Her privacy?" My laugh came out cracked. "She's my mother. And you're her daughter," he said, voice quiet. "That matters more than anything, which is why I didn't want it to be like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Like me finding out because you wrote her a note and left it in our living room?" He winced. "I wrote that note because she was hesitant about any overlap with your school. I asked her to let me talk to you. She said it wasn't time." "It wasn't time?" The word scraped my throat. "I'm not a clock. I'm your student." "I know," he said, and I hated the pain that rippled over his face. "I know exactly what this looks like. I thought ending it would be the right thing. I tried, but he exhaled as if confessing to the air. "I love her." Something inside me lurched. I had expected denial, hedging, the usual adult tricks that twist truth into something more palatable. I hadn't expected the rawness of that word. "You love her." I repeated it like an accusation. "Yes." I thought of my father's suitcase by the door, the day he left. I thought of my mother's silence afterward, the way she moved around the house like a ghost mimicking a woman. I thought of the laugh I'd heard in the kitchen, new and old at once. And then I thought of the first day of school, the way Mr. Carter looked at us like our brains mattered, the way he had told me I was smarter than my fear. "Did you meet her because of me?" I asked. The question slid out like a blade. "Did you get close to me so you could get close to her?" His eyes flashed. "No, I would never use you. I met her at the gallery in March, long before I realized she was your mother. We talked about the Mesopotamia exhibit the museum hosted. She was curating a satellite show. We argued about empire and artifacts and who gets to own history." He almost smiled, old affection tugging at his mouth. "She is extraordinary." My throat burned. I hated that the image of my mother sparring about art made something in me glow with pride. I didn't want to see them as people right now. I wanted them to be an offense I could file neatly under wrong. "Does the school know?" I asked. "No," he said, "because it's not their business unless it affects my work or your safety. I was going to talk to the principal when your mother wanted to make this public. But I wouldn't have stayed in your class. I was already arranging a switch, without telling me. Because it wasn't my place to tell you first," he said. "It should have been hers, or both of us, together." We stood in the quiet, the hum of the HVAC filling the space between us. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, so I shoved them into my jacket pockets. My fingers hit metal. I'd brought the key to my father's old storage unit out of habit, a talisman I never used but never left behind. He'd told me, before he disappeared into his second life, that some things were better off in boxes. I wasn't sure if that was wisdom or cowardice. Was it an affair when Dad was still here? I asked suddenly. The question had been coiled in me for weeks. Is that why he left? Mr. Carter's face changed. It softened and hardened at once. No, he said. Your mother would never do that. I didn't even live in this city then. I believed him. I don't know why. Maybe because the lie would have been easier, and nothing about this felt easy. I'm not asking for your blessing, he said. I'm asking for your honesty. Tell me what you need so that you feel whole, even if that means I step away from teaching you, from all of it. I stared at him, at the man who had been a teacher at 8 a.m., and a stranger in my kitchen at 8 p.m., at the man who said love like it was a vow and step away like it was a penance he'd gladly accept. My anger, hot and bright, began to cool into something harder. A demand. I need the truth, I said. From her. Not in pieces, not later. I want the story all at once, even if it hurts. He nodded. I'll tell her. I'll tell her, I snapped, the word surprising even me. I found your note. That's how this started. This shouldn't pass through you like you're some kind of translator. He didn't argue. Okay, I turned to leave, but stopped. One more thing, I said, and it cost me something to say it. If you ever let this touch my grades, my standing, anything, I will report you. I don't care how much you love her. His posture straightened, his voice firm. You have my word. Your work stands on its own. It always has. I walked home through the wet night, my reflection fractured in every puddle, thinking about boxes and locks and what people keep inside them. The house was dark when I arrived. The note still sat on the island, lipstick kiss unchanged. I picked it up and pressed my thumb to the mark, smudging it until it bloomed. My mother came in an hour later, rain in her hair, cheeks flushed from the chill. Hey, sweetheart, she said, shrugging off her coat. Did you eat? I picked up that bread you like. She opened the paper bag, pulled out a round loaf, and set it on the counter like the world wasn't on fire. I know, I said. She paused. Know what? About you and Mr. Carter. Silence fell, a heavy velvet drape. She closed the bag with careful hands, then looked up at me. Really looked at me. When she spoke, her voice was calm in the way seas are calm before storms. Sit, she said. I owe you the truth. And I sat, bracing myself as the box at the center of our family slid open, and the story we'd been avoiding stepped out into the light. The silence that followed my mother's words stretched like a rope pulled taut, ready to snap. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands clenched in my lap, while she carefully set the bread aside as though delaying the inevitable. I suppose I should have known you'd find out, she said softly, her voice more tired than guilty. Secrets don't stay buried forever. Then why try to bury it at all? I shot back, my throat tightening. Why didn't you just tell me? She exhaled, closing her eyes for a moment before opening them again. Because I'm your mother, and you're my daughter. I didn't want you to look at me differently. I already do, I whispered. Her face flinched at that, but she didn't argue. She pulled out a chair across from me and sat down, folding her hands on the table. I hated how calm she looked, how steady. I wanted her to crumble, to apologize, to say she had made some colossal mistake. But instead, she looked at me like a woman who had already made peace with her choices. I met Adrian months ago, she began, saying his name with a softness that made my stomach twist. At the gallery, we talked about history, art, the weight of preserving things that the world often forgets. I didn't know he was your teacher until later. By then what? I demanded. By then it was too late, she said simply. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. A spark. A connection that reminded me I was alive, not just surviving. Her words landed like stones. So you just decided your happiness was more important than me? Her eyes welled, but she blinked the tears back. It wasn't about choosing myself over you. It was about choosing myself at all. After your father left, I stopped living, sweetheart. I stopped believing in the possibility of love, of laughter, of feeling wanted. Adrian reminded me of those things. That doesn't make it okay. My voice cracked under the weight of it all. Her composure faltered then, her shoulders sagging as she looked down at her hands. I know how it looks, how it feels. I tried to stop it. I told myself it was wrong. But the heart doesn't listen to reason. She raised her eyes to mine, desperate. I never wanted you to feel betrayed. But I do, I said flatly. You're supposed to protect me, not entangle my life with yours like this. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. The space between us felt like a chasm now. You want me to hate him, she said, her voice breaking. You want me to say I'll walk away, but I can't, because I love him. The words hit harder than any slap. My mother, the woman who had carried me, raised me, sacrificed for me, was sitting here telling me she loved my teacher, and worse, she meant it.